The story kicks off in the grimy suburbs of Washington, D.C., a notoriously tough neighborhood where the law of the streets holds way more weight than any official decree. This area is completely in the grip of the Latin Kings, the most feared gang around. They call the shots, controlling the drug trade, running elaborate extortion schemes, and spreading a relentless wave of terror. It's pure hell for most folks stuck living there. For Lucas, a 14-year-old kid, though, this was simply the only world he's ever known. We meet him cycling through the narrow, twisting alleys with a backpack full of small narcotic packets. Despite his young face, his cold demeanor and sharp features suggest a maturity far beyond his years. He worked as a courier for the Latin Kings, and for Lucas, it was not just a gig, it was a survival instinct. He knew the lay of the land perfectly. Who runs which block, who to trust, and who's completely off limits. The power of the Latin Kings was ultimately managed by two figures. The first was Jester, the right-hand man who handled the gang's day-to-day operations. He was the one who made sure the rules were enforced, traitors were dealt with, and the fear remained palpable. But Jester answered to someone far more dangerous. The true leader of the Latin Kings, a ruthless man named Rincon. His name was seldom spoken and often whispered with dread. Rincon's dominion was built on pure blood and violence. Few would dare to even meet his gaze, but Lucas was the exception to the rule. He shared a unique connection that allowed him to see Rincon anytime he needed, a privilege no regular courier would ever have. Lucas was constantly on the grind, delivering drug parcels across the city. One of his regulars was an Afghanistan war veteran named Daniel. The man was a ghost, silent, with a blank stare that suggested his past had completely shredded his life. He rarely spoke, communicating only via short texts. Every time Lucas came by, he sent the same message: to get out of the gang, ditch the streets, and go back to school. Lucas, however, usually shrugged it off, feeling he was too far gone in the world of the Latin Kings. Meanwhile, on the opposite side of town, Rincon was living on a hair trigger. He was convinced the FBI was sniffing around. Every strange car or unfamiliar face near his turf was seen as a direct threat. But that particular night was a bit different. He was organizing the preparations for his sister's upcoming wedding. Though notorious for his cruelty, Rincon actually displayed a soft spot when he was with his family. He was dead set on making sure the big day went off without a hitch. At the same time, Lucas made a stop at Luis's fruit stall. Luis, who was already deeply in hock to the Latin Kings, was having a terrible time. His shop was mostly closed, his wife was seriously ill, and business was bone dry. Desperate, Luis begged for more time to pay his debt. Lucas, despite just being a courier, still had a bit of heart left in him and gave Luis an extra week. He knew he was playing with fire because if Rincon found out, the consequences would be fatal. In return, Luis gave Lucas a small bag of fruit to take home to his younger brother, Miguel. A moment later, Lucas returned to the gang's usual hangout, only to be met with a sight that made his blood run cold. His little brother, Miguel, had shown up, proudly declaring his intention to join the Latin Kings. This was Lucas's worst nightmare. He had been fighting tooth and nail to keep Miguel out of the muck. With his emotions hitting the roof, Lucas ordered Miguel to go back to school, promising he'd come home later. But deep down, Lucas knew his little brother was becoming increasingly hard to keep on a leash. Daniel, on the other side of town, was living a daily existence weighed down by baggage. While he was at a food truck buying a quick bite, the smells and the general commotion suddenly caused him to freeze up. The atmosphere triggered a cascade of traumatic memories from his past. The people in line were clearly annoyed by the delay, but Daniel remained completely out of it. Just then, a group of thugs rolled up, looking for trouble. They saw Daniel as an easy target, just some dazed dope ripe for the picking. They were dead wrong, though. When they dragged Daniel into a narrow alley, he quickly swallowed a pill to try and regain his composure. But the moment they went to attack, his military instincts immediately kicked in. In a blur of motion, Daniel utilized a series of devastating techniques, instantly incapacitating them all. It was immediately clear who the man really was. He was a former Special Forces soldier with skills that were still next level. Back at Rincon's house, the wedding preparations were kicking into high gear. The groom's family arrived, their faces etched with awkwardness and fear. No one was ever truly comfortable being around Rincon. At that moment, Lucas arrived to turn in the cash from his deliveries. Unlike the other couriers, Lucas was treated like royalty. There was a profound reason for this. Years ago, Lucas's older brother, who was also a Special Forces soldier, died while attempting to rescue Lucas from the gang life. Rincon had never forgotten that sacrifice. Because of that, he saw Lucas as a surrogate little brother, someone who deserved protection and a second chance. In a private moment, Rincon even gifted Lucas a crisp suit for the wedding and took the time to tell the boy how precious his own younger sister was to him. However, the familial moment quickly turned into a cold order. Rincon handed Lucas a crucial, non-negotiable task: deliver 2 large packages to a contact near a gas station and ensure Lucas was back before the wedding party officially started. Midway through his delivery, Lucas blew a fuse when he stumbled upon a brutal sight. His younger brother Miguel was being roughed up by a group of gang members. This, it turned out, was an initiation ritual secretly orchestrated by Jester. Lucas, with the righteous anger of an elder brother, immediately put a stop to it. He quickly dropped Rincon's name, claiming he was under the leader's direct protection and emphasizing that he was on a mission of supreme importance. Nobody dared to cross him. However, deep down, Lucas was facing the hard truth. Miguel was already waist-deep in this dangerous lifestyle. Meanwhile, Daniel was driving when he spotted a dead man by the roadside, completely surrounded by flashing police lights. He paused for a moment, staring blankly, and then simply drove on. A short time later, he saw Lucas and Miguel riding bikes together and tried to get their attention, perhaps to issue a warning. Lucas, however, was dead set on getting Miguel home and kept cycling. The original plan was to drop Miguel off at school, but they stopped at their house first. Lucas's mind was now made up. He had to get Miguel out of Dodge. Once home, Lucas quickly packed a small bag. He grabbed a gun and tucked a letter inside. Unbeknownst to him, one of the 2 large drug packages he was supposed to deliver slipped out of his bag and fell to the floor. Just as they were about to make a break for it, Jester and his men burst in, absolutely livid that Lucas hadn't completed his crucial delivery. They tried to force both brothers to come along to face Rincon. Jester, trying to assert his authority, tried to put Lucas in his place, but Lucas stood his ground. As they drove away, Jester started to lay into Lucas. Suddenly, a truck violently crashed near them, creating utter chaos. Lucas instantly seized the opportunity, dragging Miguel with him. They ran like bats out of hell through narrow alleys, across backyards and over fences, even crashing right through Luis's fruit stall. With their pursuers closing in fast and nowhere left to go, Daniel suddenly appeared in his car. He swung the door open and urgently yelled for them to get in. Without a second thought, both brothers scrambled inside and hid. Jester and his crew immediately took off, hot on their heels on motorbikes. A tense, high-speed chase went down through the narrow streets, with bullets flying everywhere. In the chaos, tragically, Miguel's beloved family dog was struck by a stray bullet. Daniel drove with incredible skill, expertly dodging the bullets and squealing around corners. Eventually, to buy Lucas and Miguel a chance to escape, Daniel deliberately crashed his car into a wall. As the boys scrambled out, they failed to notice that the second large drug package was still lying inside the wrecked vehicle. Daniel then ushered the brothers into a secure hiding spot. While Miguel tended to his injured leg, Daniel and Lucas had a quick exchange, communicating through a mix of sign language and text messages. It wasn't much, but it was enough for Lucas to understand that Daniel was in their corner and was prepared to protect them. Meanwhile, Rincon's sister's wedding party was in full swing, and everyone was outwardly celebrating. Lucas, thinking through his predicament, suddenly realized he only had one of the 2 packages. He quickly deduced that the other package must have fallen during the car crash. Now the car was totaled and the package was gone. Just then, Jester stormed into the party to deliver the bad news. The delivery had failed and Lucas and the drug packages were missing. Rincon immediately hit the roof and ordered his men to find Lucas and Miguel, but he was insistent that they be brought back alive. Elsewhere, Daniel urgently advised Lucas to make himself scarce and leave town for a while. Lucas was having none of it and angrily refused, slamming Daniel's phone down before running out. He was dead set on getting back home to find the missing package and complete Rincon's assignment. Moments after Jester had left the party, Spider, another influential gangster who was supposed to be the recipient of the packages, arrived. With a serious amount of cash on the line, Spider was demanding answers. Meanwhile, Lucas managed to sneak back home with the help of a friend. He frantically searched the room, found the missing package underneath the bed, and quickly urged Miguel to book it. However, the friend who had helped him turned out to be a backstabber and betrayed their location to Jester. Shortly after, Jester and his men arrived, captured Lucas, and dragged him off to face Rincon. On the other side of the turf, Daniel got word that his father-in-law had been viciously beaten by Jester's crew. This was a clear warning to Daniel to back off from Lucas's affairs, and it proved to be a major turning point for the veteran. Realizing that the gang would never stand down, Daniel made the firm decision to hit back. His ex-wife desperately pleaded with him not to go, calling the idea foolish, but Daniel was dead serious. He was determined and eventually headed straight for Rincon's headquarters, dismissing his ex-wife's suggestion of calling the police, knowing it would be pointless. Meanwhile, Lucas and Miguel were being delivered to Jester as ordered by Rincon. The wedding party was initially buzzing with music and laughter, with everyone seemingly swept up in the happiness. But the warmth was instantly shattered when Spider walked into the kitchen and aggressively harassed one of the female staff members. Rincon's temper immediately went through the roof. In front of everyone, he completely lost it and brutally killed Spider. In a flash, the lively celebration turned into a bloodbath. At the exact same time, Daniel was stealthily moving through the narrow alleys around Rincon's house. Even though the place was crawling with guards, Daniel's special forces training allowed him to take them down one by one. He even managed to capture a guard and use him as bait to attract the attention of the FBI, who had been quietly watching the house. The plan was a smash hit. Within minutes, federal agents stormed Rincon's compound. A massive firefight erupted. Bullets flew, glass shattered, and panicked screams echoed through the house. The violence claimed lives on both sides. But in the middle of the deafening chaos, an awful tragedy struck. Rincon's sister, the bride who should have been enjoying her happiest day, was hit by a stray bullet. She collapsed, covered in blood. Rincon could only stand there, stunned into silence, watching his own sister die in front of the horrified crowd. Amidst the wreckage, Daniel managed to hustle Lucas and Miguel out of Rincon's ruined house. They bolted, running through smoke, debris, and the constant crackle of gunfire until they finally made it to the train tracks. However, the peace was short-lived. Jester, his face absolutely contorted with rage, caught up to them and immediately opened fire indiscriminately. Daniel was hit in the leg while trying to shield the boys. With his remaining strength, Lucas dragged Miguel and tried to press on. But their escape was cut short as Jester quickly surrounded them, his weapon aimed squarely at their chests. Just when they thought all hope was out the window, Rincon emerged from the chaos. He stopped Jester and fixed his gaze on Lucas with a devastating mix of anger and betrayal. It was clear that the destruction of his family and the death of his sister had shredded the bond he shared with the boy. Yet despite his heartache, Rincon made a shocking call. He chose to let Lucas and Miguel go, giving them one final chance at freedom. This decision was the last straw for Jester. He flew off the handle, accusing Rincon of being weak and unfit to lead. Then came the truly mind-blowing revelation. Jester was not just a gang member, but a part of Rincon's family as well. Consumed by envy and hatred, Jester shouted his contempt at Rincon, raising his gun and shooting him. Rincon immediately crashed to the ground on the tracks, bleeding out. Jester instantly swiveled his weapon toward Lucas and Miguel. But before he could fire, Daniel, now badly limping, stepped forward. He attempted to buy the boys some time by offering the remaining drug package to Jester. Jester snatched the package, his eyes lighting up with greed as he assumed it contained cash, unaware that it was merely a masterful deception. Realizing he had been tricked, Jester flew into a brutal rage and attacked Daniel. Suddenly, a single gunshot split the night air. Jester's body staggered and then collapsed, lifeless. The shooter was Lucas's friend. The same one who had sold them out to Jester earlier was now back to make amends for his mistake. At the story's end, Lucas and Miguel boarded a train, finally leaving behind the city scarred by bloodshed and bitter memories. From the train window, they watched the city lights slowly dim and fade until the darkness of the night swallowed them whole. As he settled into his seat, Miguel felt something in his pocket. He pulled it out to find a wad of cash, Daniel's final gift. It wasn't just money. It was a powerful symbol of hope, a chance to start a new life far away from the brutal, vicious cycle of street violence.